consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission: to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
It's like everybody's on their phone communicating what they're doing to like everybody on the internet rather than, being present and being like, wow, this meal's amazing, and talking about it. We're like Instagramming it and being like, wow, this meal's amazing, isn't it? Let's see how many likes I can get.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because part of this is, these kids are, they're learning, they're getting prepared for what the future is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be connected all the time, like it or not, whether you're awake or you're asleep, whatever, you're going to be online. But the flip side is that, if you've got a kid who's being taught socialization skills, they might just turn out to have a huge advantage over everybody else because nobody else is going to know how to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. Right. And so these are going to be your leaders because they can express the ideas that make you want to follow. They can, so they're not that you're completely separating the two things, but it kind of goes to the balance thing, the moderation. It's the socialization stuff is just, you need to be able to interact with people.
Totally. It's so important.
Partly because we are pack animals, right? We need that a certain amount of intimacy. You need the interaction to feel complete or something, it's a piece of us. Mm-hmm. And if your life is in front of a screen and you don't know how to talk to people, I kind of worry for people that are
they collaborate though. I mean, I see my guy is finding allies and forming teams and going to conquer some fortress in Roblox, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm like getting my team together. And how do you do that? And they have this kind of chat thing that they kind of like avatars are walking around, and when they encounter each other, they start asking like, hey, like basically a handshake, right?
Yep.
And then the question comes, do you want to come join me to conquer these guys?
Yeah, the reason I'm laughing is because my husband, who's like 35, is a gamer, so I get it. Like, he's on his headphones and like talking to people, he's my son, I guess, that I never had.
Oh, that's where you socialize. I thought, that's where you socialize, without knowing who they are, what
But it is a form of socialization. It's true. Mm-hmm.
They establish just enough contact for them to align themselves, like to get aligned to go and achieve something together, right?
Well, I even know people that have like met up, through gaming. Like they meet people online and then they meet up in person.
Mm-hmm. My son did that.
Yeah. So it's a
didn't work out. He knew this girl for like 10 years through, and finally came out here to meet her, and it was rainbows and puppy dogs for a little while, and then it just, like overnight, it just blew up. But you know what I saw in him, and I didn't raise this kid, right? His mother raised him, and I met him a little later in his life. But
that's your nephew, right?
No, my son.
Oh yeah, your son.
And what I saw was that he grew up with doing the same thing with the computer stuff, right? He's older, but what I saw was an immature way of relating, and I don't know how to say it any differently. I'm watching this kid who at the time was in his late 20s, really kind of acting like a 14-year-old. And, he's got his own issues, but he's not autistic, but he's got some other whatever's going on. But I don't know. It just was an interesting. It just makes me wonder how, because he was not like, that was not his babysitter all the time necessarily, but that was his method of interacting with people. His chosen method was online on the computer, and then take him away from that, and you can't have a conversation even.
They have different conversations, not like we do, I think they go to finding the commonality very quickly, direct questions, boom, boom, boom. It's like a kind of like.
But I still think there's something about a personal interaction. There's an additional factor in there that is really important.
Oh, definitely.
And when you just can't get that on a computer. I don't know. I mean, we'll find out eventually, I suppose.
No, that's why we, as parents, we need to expose them, take them out of there and expose them in, team sports.
Yeah.
In different social, environments for social interactions that are not digital.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we have to do. I have Saturday is a computer holiday. I take the computer and I take it out physically. I'm removing it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
In the garage. Yeah, because you see, when you see it all the time in front of you, you get tempted to break the rules. If it's out of your sight, then it's out of your mind, right? And so,
and it's not out of David's mind. He's
going to do that with cell phones too.
He's jonesing. It's funny because even though he knows it's coming, right? But
it has to be fun, though. It's my responsibility to make it fun. So I start talking, preparing mentally. You have to prepare your child mentally. So starting Friday, tomorrow is a computer holiday, and we have something very special planned. And we're not going to get upset about this. We're just going to have fun and do this and do that. It's the time. And importance of talking with people, like you're saying, having a conversation. Let's have a conversation. You know what really worked? Playing Uno.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a different type of game, but
it's great because everybody is filling out those secret cards, right? And so if you get a card, you get to spin that thing and get that card that usually has a desire or a challenge that you have to perform, right? And we intentionally put things that are very social in nature, like dancing together, or like creating a dance, for example, right? Or maybe give everyone a hug. Go around the table and give everyone a good hug and tell something nice about them that you think, tell something nice. And so, and the kid's desire would be to, it was interesting, to talk to, for example, we really had a lot of fun with talking with an inanimate object like a chair, as if it was actually a person, and have a meaningful conversation with the chair, So that was so much fun. But I mean, you can't find something like that in your computer gaming, right? So there's definitely value, and it is seen by the kid. So there's pure fun in this, and we're all laughing, and it's memorable.
It forces the imagination to come into play, right?
Imagination, and nothing parallels these kinds of activities in their world. And so they start getting used to it, and they're starting to almost anticipating this time and wanting it to happen. That's the purpose, but it has to be consistent. One thing for sure, you can't just have, today, this Saturday is not going to be a computer holiday because we are busy, and then you're going to erase all your work, So, consistency, and
Are you taking notes, Timmy?
I am. I'm taking parenting. I don't need any more information, though. I'm overloaded. That's the whole point.
Yeah. The desire to share is there,
Yeah.
So what I want to ask is, in your existing community that you have, in the conversations that go on there, what are maybe one or two, like, the most common things, the challenges, the things that people are really asking each other about? How do I
think the biggest one is like the guilt. I think that's a huge issue that I find, like, whenever I do stuff about like guilt or like that, I get a lot of response and a lot of comments on that, because I don't know what it is. I think that, and I don't know if that's always been there, the mom guilt or the dad guilt, but I think that is really prevalent, and maybe it's because of technology, and you see everybody on Facebook or Instagram, you're like, oh, they're doing this with their family, or like their kids are talking already. I must be a terrible mom because my child's not talking, or stuff like that. I just think there's a lot of comparing, and that is tough. So I think that's the number one, is like the guilt, and probably the number two is I can't think of it right now, but I will let you know if I think of another one.
Well, guilt is a big one, right? It's because and if you're in that mindset that you have to, it's on you to do everything for everybody else when you're not able to, and that's inevitable, or when you're not able to do it up to the standards of what you think other people are doing. Yeah, that was another one of your videos, was expectation versus reality. But I think when you're measuring yourself against other people, it's
pointless.
Yeah, at some point you are going to be disappointed with yourself. You're going to make yourself unhappy, because we're just not the same people.
Mm-mm.
And things don't.
What do you think? I had a friend visiting this past weekend, and she was telling me that she's like, guilt is a choice.
Yep.
So I was like, yeah, that's true, but it's hard. How do you choose not to be guilty? It's a hard choice.
One of the analogies that I use is that if you're at a place where you're looking at something and you're feeling guilty about it, you've probably had that guilt since the event happened, whatever it was, or what you didn't do that you're feeling bad about. So you've had this for a little while. It's not an instantaneous thing that really starts affecting you, right? It eats at you a little bit and builds. And then at some point you verbalize it to somebody, or it causes a crisis of some kind, and you explode on something. But if that's going on, you've already paid the price for the quote unquote mistake that you've made, right? And so the idea is that we learn from the things we do. I'm having an issue avoiding the word wrong, but we learn from what we do wrong. We learn from our mistakes, and then going forward, if you're confronted with the same opportunity, you do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
But carrying guilt with you doesn't serve you going forward. You've already paid. You've done your penance. You've done your prison time. By the time it comes to a head and you're speaking it out loud.
But this is like performance anxiety. I think that's what Jamie was alluding to, right? The performance anxiety, like kids are not meeting the same milestones or whatever.
Oh, I think performance anxiety too, because of social media and all this stuff and all that information. I feel like, with my second daughter, I didn't have it really, because I was just like, they're different. I don't know, I had gotten over it. But with the first one, it was like, okay, they should be doing this at 9 months. And it's like 9 months on the dot. They're not doing it. You're like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What? I'm a failure. Yeah, total performance anxiety. But it's like, we need to read like 9 to 12 months. And like every kid is different. And like, just because your kid did this first doesn't mean anything, There's like, obviously if they're not walking by X age, you know, like there might be an issue. There are extremes, but I'm just saying in general, like usually it's not a big deal. So
well, even they have their own agendas somehow, right?
Totally.
You know?
And I think having 2 kids really like brought that to light with me, because I feel like I tried so hard with the first one, like, you know, trying to get her to do all this stuff and like reading to her every day and doing all these things. And then the second one comes out and she's like way more advanced on all the milestones. And I wasn't even trying with her.
That happens a lot. I hear that the second one is way like easier and gets things faster and whatever.
Yeah. And the first one I was like, she's like, what's wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? And like, you know, the second one, she just does it all like earlier.
Well, you know,
so it's totally.
The part of it is the second one is seeing the older one.
Yes.
Doing it, and they want to do the same thing. Right? There's a jealousy factor in there, or there's a competition factor in there. Something they want to do the same thing. And so they work at it, man. They set their minds to it and they work at it. And then the law of attraction perspective on this is you know, that first time around, you're looking and you're measuring, and your mind is not on where they're going to be. Your mind is on what they're not doing. Your mind is on the lack side of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're influencing that growth, like it or not.
And I'm sure that it also relates to this performance guilt relates to like older children as well, you know, like in high school and all this stuff. And I read this article and I did a post about it that I thought was pretty interesting, is that we say like we want our kids to be happy, right? So we're like, we want our kids to be happy, and we think that happiness equates to, you know, being successful in school, or, you know, running really well, or being athletic, or whatever we have in mind for what we want our children to do. And it doesn't mean they're going to be happy if they're the best runners, or they're the smartest kid, or they're the most popular kid, or whatever. That doesn't really equate to happiness. And I think that puts a lot less stress on you as a parent if you know, think about it that way rather than the other way. What do you think about that, Gabi? Since you have older children.
I'm seeing that, you know, that kind of pattern of constantly comparing our kids to other kids. It's everywhere. I mean, this is our climate. This is our society. That's how we do things. You know, that's just, competitiveness is ingrained in this culture. Yeah, I mean, I come in the classroom for David. I remember signing him up to this new school, in the new school when we moved. And they were showing me the school, and I would walk into a classroom, and I remember that there was like, on the board, there was a list of top 5 students. You know, there were names listed in 1, 2, 3. So they're assigning places to children, right? And so my kid would never be in the first 5. It just will not happen. He doesn't have that thing, the competitive thing, you know, and he won't even care about it. Plus he, you know, and many children will not, right? But there are some that are really good and they fit well in this whole thing, and, you know, competing and all, right? And then there are other schools now where they don't ever compare your child to any other child. They basically only compare their progress, right? They compare themselves to the versions of themselves, say 2 months ago or 3 months ago, right? So each kid is compared to himself or herself, and
is that more motivating?
The success is celebrated when they are making the progress from the point when they, you know, started to where we have gone, where they have gone to, and what they achieved in comparison to where they were, where the starting point was, right? Not trying to see how everyone else did, right?
Yeah.
And so that immediately removes tension, and because there's a lot of this thing, what you were saying, guilt. Right? Oh, I'm not doing quite as good as this other kid, and now the teacher gave them, there's a lot of like reward or maybe kind words that the teacher said to me, but not to this person, right? All of this is happening, and children are very perceptive. Oh, I'm not as good. This is a popular kid and doing really well. I had that at school too. We had like 2 or 3 children who were like just excellent in all respects, right? And I was a troubled kid, no discipline, often punished, and whatever.
Why am I not at all surprised?
And I just couldn't understand. Somehow the switch will go on, and I would just not even pay attention, whatever. Yeah. So, every kid, but you know what? There are all these different kinds of brains, different kinds of minds, and different kind of missions, right? Diversity. Some of them became great administrators, others became entrepreneurs, and yet others became writers and whatever, and gamblers and players. We needed all of them, right? Mm-hmm. But so comparing is just not. We have to, and I think that's happening. We are revisiting this whole thing. Progressive schools, innovative schools are seeing this, and they're seeing this negative programming, and they're changing their ways. And this is one of the most positive things that is happening actually in the U.S., especially on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's great.
Not so much on the East Coast, but New York is also got the charter schools there. Also happening, yeah. So yeah, and we as a result, parents, right, also follow in the wake of this whole thing, right, and trying to get our children to do this and that better than somebody else, and feeling guilty if they don't, and we shouldn't buy into this.
No, because they're all different, and like I can even see it like in my young children. Like there's the younger one likes to be more like follow the rules and like tell me what to do and I'll do it well. And then the older one's kind of like, I do my own thing.
Right.
So like more like creative, more, she's more like, and the other one's just really good at following the rules. And it's just like, she'll be like a lawyer or like a doctor, and the other one will be like an artist,
Exactly.
And that's
and everyone, in everyone, there's a genius.
Yeah. And you just explained to us why the first one wasn't hitting these milestones you were expecting, because she had other things to do.
Yeah, she's
coloring
like
outside the lines.
Exactly. It's weird how you can see that at such like an early age,
Yeah.
What's the ideal state for us, right? The ideal state, that's what Tim and I are always tackling, right? The ideal state is to unlock the potential, to create this powerful, unleash this creative power in people so that they could, and this is in everyone. In every little child, there is a special gift. There is a special gift, and it just needs to be found what it is. That's the school's objective, to try to expose that child to different things until they get it.
Click.
The light bulb will go on. It's like, oh, that's my thing, And how do you find this? By exposing to more and more things, right? To different things. And our education today is we're just having, it was done in the end of 19th century. We are raising people to join the workforce. And so we decided math and science, what else we need, and oh yes, and, some basic knowledge about history, so propaganda, so they follow and do not ask too many questions, and that's it, And this is now all happening. It's changing. That's why many parents are taking their kids away from schools and doing homeschooling, because you could do all this in 1 hour, and then you could expose your children. They take them on long trips around the world.
Yeah.
Instead of learning about the world from a textbook, you're visiting those.
It's amazing. It is amazing. Like, I feel like there's a stigma against homeschooling because, kind of in the past it was like the weirdos, but now it's like, it's so awesome.
It's
I think
really
if you do it right,
if you do it right, and you have to have the time, like, you have to have the time as parents to be able to do it.
You can't do a 9-to-5 job in one place and do homeschooling, frankly. But so many people now work from home that it's just becoming more like palatable, you know.
And there's a lot of too, like the hybrid style, kind of like I know a girl who just created this school. It's like online, but they also do, it's like a charter school. It's online, but they have a brick and mortar so that kids can come in and they do certain things at the school, but it's mostly online based.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how many, you know, in every area, not just in schools, but in just in businesses and in just in all kinds of things, where there are all these little like micro
transformative things happening.
But there's micro models for how businesses are going to be run, or how schools are going to be run, or how, you know, malls maybe are going to be run, whatever. And not everybody fits into any of those, and some of those work really, really well for certain individuals or certain kinds of businesses or something. And I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe someday we'll just see, you know, there's 15 different models for schools. You know? And you get, as a parent, you get to pick whichever one works best for your kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's weird to think like the school system has been like the same, like you said, for like over 100 years.
Yeah.
Like basically the same. And think of how much everything has changed in the past 100 years. It just seems really weird that it's lagged so far behind.
And
well, it's, you know,
many teachers are changing that, by the way. They come, the millennials joining the schools, and they're given opportunities, and I see that a lot, experimenting, and it's just all about how tightly controlled, you know, with this whole test results and you know, the testing to get funding from the federal government.
Yeah, no, it's
all this stuff is obviously, you know,
that's all blowing up, right?
Slowing them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll change because you know, people aren't playing the game as much. So, I guess I keep pointing at the internet because overnight it changed the world, right? And we sit here and we almost can't remember how it was before, but the internet hasn't been around long.
By the way, in 1995, they were celebrating this. There's a date just recently. There was an anniversary of the first browser. Which was called Mosaic.
Mosaic, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that. I was in college back then. And there was a guy on in our class, and I was majoring in computer science. The guy was talking about Mosaic, and I was like, oh, what are you talking about? Show me. And I saw it, and I was like, oh my God. And then Mosaic later became Netscape.
Yeah.
Right, Netscape. And then Netscape later became Mozilla. And then Mozilla became Firefox, you guys. That's what we're using today. Firefox, right? One of the most popular browsers, actually.
Yeah.
Very well made. So, yeah, it was 1995.
Yeah.
Didn't have anything. That was the first browser.
Basically 20 years.
So there's nothing. I mean, look how quickly.
The world is a completely different place.
Yeah.
You know, cell phones. I remember when, you know, the car phone was a big deal, but it was attached at a cord, and it was a brick. It was huge, right? But if somebody had a phone in their car, woo, that was
fancy. Well, I mean, even like smartphones. I mean, that's like even super, like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was late for the iPhone, but I think I got my first iPhone like 7 years ago. So.
Yeah. Yeah, this is happening. What's exciting to see is the future of work changes. The future of work, how we do stuff, where we work, everywhere. Somehow people become more aware to not just do work, but follow their passion and go and get involved with things that are really interesting.
Well, all of that comes out of
Because very important for the millennials.
Yeah, this used to be a manufacturing economy. Right? We used to make things. And we moved from agriculture to the cities, and everybody had jobs with the industrial age, and you were making things and producing. And as time went on, we moved into information, and so the schools, they're just lagging behind. And as the work environment becomes radically different, then the schools will have to change, because people won't allow their kids to be in the schools. Because that's what it takes, right? These institutions don't change just because a handful of people complain. They change when their pockets
to find alternatives. Yeah.
When you were born, Jamie, internet was already underway, right?
No, actually, I was born in '83.
83. So yeah,
So I remember like getting our first computer like in 7th or 8th grade. So
in the classroom,
and like in high school, we didn't hardly have internet. I think it was like halfway through high school. So and then like even when I went to college, I think it was like the first time they had internet in all the dorms my freshman year. But like that changed radically by the time I graduated.
So you're with us. You're old school, right? We are really a privileged generation.
I'm just a millennial. Like I'm just the millennial. I'm at the cutoff.
I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers.
You are one of the most progressive baby boomers I know, Tim, because you are so digital. You're so online. You're so in the community, online community, present, right?
Kind of.
Anybody I know of your last like late boomers, right? Most of them have no clue, and they're thinking this is like we like the world moved on. We just stuck.
Oh yeah. You know? Well, there's because I've been doing computer support work for 20 plus years.
Yeah, that really made a big deal.
And and so I remember helping people with their AOL, right, was one of these things that was just, it served its purpose. It was good for certain people, but so many people had such a hard time understanding that AOL was like a gated community. You got a membership, you went in there, and they were sort of giving you, it's like Main Street at Disneyland, all of the stores, all the things that you want are right here. Stay inside the gate, right? They couldn't understand that was not the internet. It's a place on the internet, but it's really not the internet. And but for certain people, it's perfect, right? It's the people who don't want more, who aren't curious necessarily, or they just want access to certain things, and they'd rather not leave. But,
it's just a glorified CompuServe. You remember CompuServe? Like it was all text based, and now it's all like visual, but it's still like a community on an online community. America Online, right? You remember receiving those little discs in the mail?
Oh, God.
You also remember, see? So I wish I had one. I wish I had saved, just as a
somebody's got a collection of 10 million AOL
somebody
CDs.
saved them.
Yeah.
When I started the job that I was doing at New York Life 20 years ago, I went in there and there were like Microsoft Office on floppy disk. So you had like 28 floppies that you had to feed in to install Office. Oh my God.
That's time consuming.
Wow.
Since you mentioned that, my first program I wrote in university, my first computer program, I had to punch it on perfo cards. They were like cards. There's a machine where you could basically type your your commands, right? And you basically, your program would be represented by a stack of those cards.
Right.
That then you would go and put into the machine, and it would read the commands, upload them into the memory, and start executing one by one, the commands. And the language was Fortran. language for formula translation. I got Fortran, actually, formula translation or something. I think that's the acronym, right? I mean, I sometimes feel like that is a privilege to have that experience and to have this opportunity, seeing how the humanity went from this to where we are. And I'm not done yet. I'm going to continue enjoying this journey, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how our kids responding to this. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Maybe I would enjoy a Renaissance era, right? But it was not even close to this. I mean, we are watching the most exciting movie happening.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And they're going to be, 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Your kids, Jamie, are going to be able to look back and go, we've seen so many changes in our lifetime.
Probably more
than 10 generations before us. They're not even going to get a chance to appreciate the stuff that comes along. Yeah. It's going to be like, oh, it's in my hands. Oh, it's gone. What happened?
Yeah.
It's accelerating. So
yeah. I remember, when Yahoo was the big dog on the internet, and they were running their TV commercials and radio commercials and everything, and do Yahoo.
Yeah.
And they were so big, and there was nobody else who approached, and you would, if you put any thought into it, it was just like, how could they be dethroned,
Mm-hmm.
And then along comes Google that did, the problem that Yahoo had is they had this whole portal thing that they were trying to do, all these bells and whistles going on when you went to yahoo.com. And Google comes along and said, oh, we're just going to give you you type in what you want to search for. That's all we're giving you. And it came, and it was accurate, and it came really fast. And overnight, Yahoo was dead. Just because Google gave people what they really wanted in a search engine.
A lot of people still have Yahoo email.
I do.
Yeah.
I get frustrated with them, but yeah, I still have it.
I preserved mine just because I'm thinking this is like my souvenir kind of email. Yeah, antique kind of thing. I don't want to give it up.
You'll crank up phone. Ethel, give me Barney. Yeah. So. Jeez. All right, I think I feel that we're winding down here. Jamie, I kind of feel bad. We really detoured away from your thing a lot.
That's okay. No, it's fine.
That's the quality of our podcast.
Yeah.
It's great.
So you were the catalyst for some good stuff.
Yeah, there are some very good conversations.
Yeah. So, but what I want to do though is to give you an opportunity to, for one, to give everybody whatever contact information you want to give out. But also, if there's anything that you wanted to bring out that we have managed to detour and sidetrack, bring it up and lay it on us, and maybe we'll start another conversation here. But you got any words of wisdom for the audience? And
yeah, find me. Right now, the best place to find me would be my Facebook page, Jamie King Hunt. And then you can find my Calm in the Chaos site through there because I post everything on my personal page. And then my website is calminthechaos.net. And there you can go, and I'll be posting events, local events, online stuff, and good articles. I'll post all my videos there. So
Cool. Yeah, and by the time this comes out and people can actually watch this or listen to this, you'll be a little farther along. This is not live, so yeah, great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank
you. It was real fun. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. We'll let you go, and we're part of the same networking group, so our paths will cross again. And,
definitely.
Maybe we'll do this again.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around.